And so if there is a dream and there is a passion or there is something that's tugged at your heartstrings, it's for a reason.
Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It is Kate Bryan here for another week and another inspiring story. The One Girl Revolution podcast highlights the stories of everyday women who are changing the world through their lives. Please subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number one girl, REVO. We're on YouTube at One Girl Revolution. You can find all of our social media links, videos, podcast episodes, and everything else on our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one girlrevolution.com. On today's episode, we talk about purpose and the inherent value that every single person holds inside of them. There are moments in life where you may feel like you're different or that you don't fit in. You may feel like you're all alone, you're isolated, or that your life doesn't matter. But the reality is you are beautiful, you're as unique as your fingerprint, and the world needs you to be exactly who you were created to be. So find out who you are, find resources and support to help you figure it out, and embrace the life that was laid before you and continue becoming the person that you were meant to be. You are a gift to this world. Today, I am so excited about this one. I welcome Jenny Brown, co-founder of Dutton Farm in Michigan, to the One Girl Revolution podcast. Jenny and her mom started Dutton Farm in honor of her sister Becca, who was born with Down syndrome. Dutton Farm empowers and supports adults with disabilities to live a life of purpose, inclusion, and dignity. They provide adult education, workforce development, and community engagement. Dutton Farm is a beacon of hope for adults, their families, and for the community. They are so incredible, and I can't wait to share their work with you and Jenny's story. Dutton Farm also has a bath and body company that supports their work called EveryBody. I will put a link in the show notes so you can check it out. Their products are incredible and it goes to support a great cause, so check it out. Jenny is such an incredible woman who has such beautiful wisdom and stories to share, and I am so honored and excited to share her story with you. So without further ado, here's Jenny. Jenny, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really excited to be at Dutton Farm. I can't wait to hear all the story behind Dutton Farm, and I know everybody who's listening is excited to hear as well. But before we get into that, before we get into your own story, I would love to hear, who is a One Girl Revolution? Who is a one woman or a girl that has inspired you in your own life?
So there's many, but the one that always stands out to me is my sister Becca. She's almost 5, 6, 7 years older than me. No, she's almost 10 years older than me. And she has Down syndrome. And growing up, I didn't realize how fortunate I was, and how she really formed my character and impacted my whole worldview, and how I perceive differences and how I'm able to include all different types of people and feel like I belong with all different types of people because of the way that I was able to watch her and how our relationship just poured into me, and she taught me so much more than I could ever repay her for.
I want to rewind to your story when you were little and growing up with your sister and growing up. I'd love to hear just a little bit about your backstory and what it was like, growing up in did you grow up in Rochester?
I grew up in Rochester. Yeah. So I have a really unique story and a really unique childhood. So I am one of 14.
Wow. I didn't realize you were one of 14. That's awesome.
Yep. So I'm the sixth of 14. I grew up on a big farm, and my dad did well in business, and we always just had lots of different people in and out of our house. So my sister Becca really was the foundation for just how we operated as a family. And it brought so much joy and so much togetherness and so much perspective into our family. So I think differences were really normalized in my household. So I'm the sixth of the biological children. And then my parents decided, because my dad did really well in business, that my mom and I wanted to become foster parents. And so when I was in like fourth or fifth grade, they decided to become foster parents. And then my whole world was opened up to lots of different children who had a much different experience than mine, right? So I had this idealistic childhood with ponies and four-wheelers and snowmobiles and traveling all over the world and private school and all of these things where I think it's good as a parent. You want to provide for your children, but also I think you can sometimes inhibit your children from really reaching their potential when they're not able to be exposed to things that are hard. And so when my parents decided to become foster parents, I didn't even really know what that was at the time, but it really opened up my whole world to the fact that every child's life doesn't look like mine. And somebody else's normal is not a happy thing. And so that really impacted my life. And then my sister, Becca, who has Down syndrome, would always have her friends over, and my friends would hang out with her friends. And so me and my friends hanging out with somebody that might have cerebral palsy or autism or Down syndrome was just like a normal thing. And I thought that the world would look kind of like that. And then I graduated high school and realized that wasn't the case. And I should say my mom also did respite care. So a lot of times when you're a parent of a child with a developmental disability, it's not easy to find caregiving, and it's not easy to be able to spend time with your spouse or go to work or all those different types of things. And so my mom would provide respite care for all different types of individuals who had different disabilities. So it would be very normal for me to walk into my house and see my mom just sitting and chit-chatting with somebody who was severely impaired, and it was just a normal thing for me. So when I graduated high school, I went on to play college basketball and ended up getting a degree in political science and sociology. But my sister was stuck at home after high school. She couldn't jump in her car and go drive down the road and get a job or enroll in college or even go connect with her friends at the mall, really, because, transportation was a barrier, accessing the community was a barrier, there was barriers, accessing the workplace, there were barriers. And I saw the life that she had, because she has a very vibrant social personality, start to change. And it really bothered me so much so that my mom and I decided to start this organization.
That's so awesome. And I'm so glad that you shared about your life growing up, because I think more families need that, where it's normalizing. I shared with you before, my brother has autism. So we kind of grew up in that similar thing where it was like, everybody has their difference, everybody has something they have to deal with, and we need to look at one another as being special and beautiful and created for a purpose. And I think there's something really empowering when kids are taught that from a young age. And so it's really beautiful. What an example that your family is, and even that you guys have continued to be through Dutton Farm.
Yeah, I think parents can position their children in certain circumstances to allow the child the opportunity to learn and grow and become more self-aware and become more empathetic, because I think sometimes privilege can be a really, really dangerous thing for a child to think that as they grow up, they deserve this, that, or the other thing. And that's, so far from the truth.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate to have been exposed to a lot of different things at a young age.
And even foster care too. We've covered foster care on this podcast, numerous things, and, shared stories of families that have been foster parents and children in foster care, experiences that they have. And so I think even that, it just gives you so much perspective on the world.
Yep. So my husband and I are foster parents and adoptive parents. So our foster care license is no longer open, but we were foster parents for many years. We provided foster parenting or foster care for about 10 to 12 children. and we had the privilege of adopting 2. So when I started Dutton Farm, I was in my early 20s. And I look back and I think like, oh my gosh, I see other 20-year-olds and I'm like, they're like babies. How did I had 2 children.
Wow.
I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I was pregnant. And I'm like out here painting and weeding and gardening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so much at such a young age. Brand new marriage, bills that I was not used to paying because they were all paid for me before that. But yeah, I think, but part of that, if you feel like you don't know enough and you feel like you haven't experienced enough or you're not equipped, that sometimes isn't a good thing, because sometimes what you don't know can be your best friend, because then it gives you confidence and it gives you a figure it out kind of attitude, and you just take it as it comes. Because if you knew it all and you knew all of the challenges that you would face and all the mountains that were in front of you, you probably never would have started the journey in the first place.
It's true, because things are hard, and
It's
I'm
hard.
sure there are so many chapters that you experienced looking back that it's like, had I known all those difficulties, there's lots of beautiful things too, but had you known all the difficulties, you'd be too scared to do it. Like, I think we've all had those experiences where you're like,
I would be definitely more hesitant, but the person it has molded me into, I look back and I wince at some of the things that like I wish I knew. But if I hadn't gone through certain things, I wouldn't be molded into the person that I am still becoming, which hard things do that. You know, that's what the fire's supposed to do. It's supposed to refine you, right? And if we are scared of the hard things, then we don't give ourselves the opportunity to be refined.
Right. So I know you talked a little bit about the spark. I'm always curious about the spark, how Dutton Farms, the idea came about, and then how you guys went from 0 to where it is today. How did the idea spark, and then how did you get it started?
I mean, definitely my sister, and just the massive disparity between what the trajectory of what my future could look like. The sky's the limit, right? The world is your oyster. And how it was for my sister. And what really bothered me was that she didn't, she had so much talent and so much desire and so much more to offer than even I did. Yet the world was not built for somebody that looked any different to be successful. And then I started really understanding what the statistics look like for her. For people with developmental disabilities, the unemployment rate is 85% in America. In 2021, it's unacceptable. And nobody really even knows these statistics. And there's like 2 million Americans that are never able to leave their home because of transportation barriers. So they're not able to access their community. And it's still legal here in America to pay people who have a developmental disability sub-minimum wages. That's, you know, for any people group, any other people group, I think it would be national news. But somehow it's legal here in America to do that. And so some of these things really just fueled my focus to know that forever, no matter what, like these faces of my sister's friends are burned in my memory. So in my mind. So when it does get hard and I get weary or discouraged, I'll never forget those faces. And advocating for them because I can, because I have certain God-given skills that allow me to be sturdy and focused and energetic, is I knew that I would never not advocate for them. So my sister definitely started the spark, but I knew my sister's friends. I had experience working in Pontiac with people with developmental disabilities, and some of the life experiences and the challenges that these individuals, these students had to go through, really brought me to my knees a few times. I remember walking into a bathroom and just sobbing because of some life circumstances. I was really, really, really young when I was helping out in this school, and that something just had to be done. And so that's kind of how my passion started. And then you just start with what you have. I think it's wrong to think you have to have everything figured out before you start, because then you'll never start. you'll never have everything figured out. There's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be a curveball. There's always going to be something to solve. And you have to just get comfortable in that space, knowing to live in the tension, to live in the unknown, to live in the challenges, knowing that impact is being made and what you're doing is bigger than all of the challenges that you're working out in the day to day. But we started really informal. It was just me, my kids, band t-shirt and, 5 or 6 people with developmental disabilities and my mom just coming and kind of doing life together. And what I love about the way we started and why it makes me so proud, because the individuals we were doing life with were our mentors. They were our teachers. And they showed me what really needed to be done. I wasn't listening to the money. I wasn't listening to the industry experts. I wasn't listening to those that had been around for a while, which I don't think is a bad thing, because you listen to people that go before you and they have the experience, and though that mentorship is gold. But I love that we had the individuals who we were working alongside teaching us what needed to be done, and their families. And it stayed really small for several years. We started just 3 days a week, and we had zero budget, no infrastructure, no job descriptions, no titles, no organizational chart, just this magical place of acceptance and love, and living in the awkward place when I didn't really know how to serve this person or what to do about this person. They taught me. They eventually showed me, whether it was a mental health condition or a physical impairment where they needed help walking or assistance in the restroom. And it taught me. Those years were just some of the best years of my life. They taught me so much. But I came to a pivotal moment. What we had was so special. And there were so many people that wanted to be a part of this program. And selfishly, I didn't really want it to grow, because I didn't want to have to do anything else than come here and hang out with the most incredible people ever. And I grew up in church, and I grew up with a lot of religious things. And I went to private school, and I have never felt closer to God than when I was with the individuals that were here. And so I didn't want to let go of that. I didn't want that to change. But in my gut, I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do, and that was selfish, because I was given certain skills for so many more people that needed this program. And so I started to build, and I started to use every ounce of skill and brain power and energy that I had to build Dutton. And then I of course hit so many challenges and so much discouragement, because it's hard to build infrastructure. It's the mission part is the easy part, right? The hanging out with the people with developmental disabilities and building curriculum and helping learn while they teach you and doing this life. That was the beautiful part, but it's the sustainability and the infrastructure that was hard. And then I realized that really good leaders should be the B student, and they find people that are better than them, smarter than them, to take the organization to another level. And that's what I started to do. And that's when everything started to change and really go into hyperdrive, is finding really good team members that were better than me, whether it be finance or HR or programming or whatever. And that's really what changed the organization, truly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's what I think a lot of times people see what you talked about, like all the fun part of an organization,
the
like,
glamorous,
glamorous, the easy parts. But the reality is it takes so much grit, and you have to have a good team behind you. And that's the only way that you'll grow and be successful. And it's brought Dutton Farm to where it is today. And I'm sure it's going to grow. I'm going to ask you in a little bit where your dream of dream worlds, where Dutton Farm goes. But for people that are listening, what is Dutton Farm, and tell me about all the programs and different things that you guys have here?
Sure. So we are Medicaid funded nonprofit service provider in Rochester. So in Oakland County. And what we provide are services for accessing the community, accessing the workplace, and learning transferable job skills and independent living skills. And all of these services are provided to adults with developmental disabilities who are graduating or have graduated high school and are looking to have additional support to enter the workplace, their communities, or just to learn additional independent living skills.
That's great. And I got to have a little tour. So shout out to Jen. It was so cool to go walk around and see everything. But you have a lot of different programs here and different things that you do. I know you had a marketplace at some point and you're going to partner with, I believe, like a market in Pontiac or store.
That's done.
That's done. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the projects and things that you do here.
Sure. So our workforce development program is something we started several years ago, and it really is in partnership with our Medicaid funder here in Oakland County to help individuals who are looking to become employed to have the supports that they need to understand their skills, what they're good at, their stamina, what they like to do, and then customize a job search that matches what they like to do and what their skills are. And so then we have a huge list of employment partners where when we find, we're working with someone that we're identifying skills with and what they really like to do, and then helping match them to one of our employers for successful job placement. And so the retention of that job is, much longer than just thinking any person would be placed in any job and become successful. So we're in several different industries. We're in childcare, we're in plant care, we're in sales, we're in landscaping, we're in lots of different industries where we help match people with jobs. And then that's kind of how our social enterprise got started. So I'm also the owner of a social enterprise called EveryBody Inc. Some people refer to it as EveryBody by Dutton Farm. So it's kind of a play on words. Everybody, everybody, because it's bath and body products. So I was working with a gentleman who had paranoid schizophrenia and a cognitive impairment. He is about 6'6", 400 pounds, 350 pounds, 400 pounds, just a very large man. And he's a gentle as they come. And we were really good friends. He was one of our very first participants at Dutton Farm. And we were learning together. He was teaching me about mental health, and I was trying my best to teach him what I could, but I was doing most of the learning at that time. He was quite a bit older than me. He was probably 20, 25 years older than me. And because of our contract with the state, every year we have our individual contracts reviewed, their plans of service. And in one of those reviews, this gentleman was sitting in the room with all of the caseworkers and different people that are part of his plan, his team. And of course I was there. And one of the things he mentioned, and this was really before we had a robust workforce development program, was that he wanted a job, that he was 40-something years old and he had never been told, you're hired. Never been told those words, or never felt really a part of a team, or never been compensated for the skills that he had. And there's so much behind that. I think when people say it is better to give than to receive, I think because there's a certain power in being a giver, and there's a certain humility in being a receiver. And when you're always the one that's a receiver, I don't think that's very dignified when you're always the one that's doing the receiving. And I don't think employment equals value at all, but I think everyone should have the opportunity to be employed if they want to. And so he really did. And so I started the job search for him. I told him, yes, we will get you a job. So then it gets put in his plan, and I have a year to accomplish this, or else I am in breach of his contract. And so we went through the process, and a couple of months went by. We did a few interviews. They did not go well because he had just certain quirks that I thought were very endearing, but you can't swear in an interview process, or you can't walk out of the room and burp and stuff like that. So we were unsuccessful. I was very discouraged, And then I had this very convicting aha moment where I realized that I had been doing this so many years. I was a champion of inclusion in the workplace, in our churches, in our communities of people with developmental disabilities. And I had no one on my payroll. I hadn't hired one person on my payroll that had a developmental disability. I was preaching it, but I wasn't living it. And so it was just a moment that I'll never forget, where I was and how loud that word was to my heart. And I knew that had to change immediately. So I was trying to brainstorm ways that I could generate revenue to show that a business can be profitable while also being mission focused. Business has to have a brain and a soul, and they should work together. And my mission was hiring people with developmental disabilities. And so we had an aromatherapist on staff already, and she was really, really good with bath and body products. So we started with just one bar of soap, and I begged a bed and breakfast to give us a contract for all of his rooms. And this sweet old man, I'm pretty sure I was on my hands and knees begging him. He gave me the contract to generate enough revenue to hire this guy. His name was Marty. And I was like, I think I'm really onto something here, this hybrid model of nonprofit and for-profit to really hold both sectors accountable. And it just started to grow from there.
What kind of stuff do you guys, so it's bath and body products.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you guys sell.
So it started off just kind of an activity of the farm. And then we separated last year for everybody to be its own entity. And we did that for the most important reason, that the federal government said we could no longer be the service provider and the employer for a variety of reasons. And it was a really good decision. So we ended up just having to take a scalpel and separate the two. And then we had to really figure out how to function as a bath and body company and not as, an activity underneath a nonprofit. So we've done a lot of work perfecting our product line. We have body butter. We have candles, we have body balms, we have lip balms, we have hand soap, we have bar soap, we have this whipped soap sugar scrub. So I wasn't a huge fan of the sugar scrub that was super oily. This is a soap sugar scrub, so it doesn't leave your bathtub oily, and it just like suds up and then washes right off. So it's one of my favorites. And then we're launching a body oil in August.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to promote all the different products, and anybody who's listening, I'm sure that they can buy them online or something.
Yep. So everybodyinc.com.
Awesome.
Yep.
So we'll be sure to promote that. I know you shared a couple of stories, or you shared one story that was very powerful, but is there another story just of the work that you do here at the farm that really has touched you in a special way? Maybe somebody that you encountered or someone that has worked here or worked with you guys that really kind of embodies the work of Dutton Farm, but also touched your heart in a special way?
There's so many. And I think, I'm so fortunate to experience all of the different miraculous and touching stories that I have, that it's almost become normal for me to experience all of the different amazing stories that I've experienced. There's situations or stories with parents of adult children that have severely multiply impaired children that are now adults that are looking for a place for their loved one to just belong. And I think that's what's so special here, is a sense of belonging. And when you have experienced being somewhere but don't feel like you belong, you understand how important it is to feel like you belong. But probably an impactful story that's coming to my mind now is a gentleman that's really close to me. His name is John. I grew up with him, actually. He's somebody that my mom would provide respite care for. And then we kind of lost touch when he was like in junior high-ish, but we grew up together. He has autism, and his childhood looked very different than mine. And when we lost touch, I kind of, went to high school and did my thing. And when I started Dutton Farm a couple of years in, maybe 3-4 years in, I can't remember now. But I received a phone call, and it was him. I don't know how he got our number, but his dad had passed several years earlier, and his mother had just passed. And his mother went into cardiac arrest. He got to the hospital with her somehow, whether on the ambulance or something, and was pronounced dead when she was at the hospital. And he walked home from the hospital, and he was living in a situation that wasn't ideal. And he called, and I rushed over there, and it was the sweetest reunion. It was like no time had passed, and we knew each other, and it was just like this bond that couldn't be broken. And it gave me so much life, and it gave him so much opportunity, and so he just started coming to the farm. Well, his cousin got wind that I had brought him into the farm, and I'd never met him. And so they started coming around and kind of seeing what we were doing. And his cousin's wife ended up working for us for many years, and is really the reason that EveryBody is the company is as successful as it is now. And she just really dove in and did a ton of great work for us. And he had never been employed. He was in his 30s, and had always struggled in social situations and things like that. And he lost probably 100 pounds, found friendships, found socialization, and was able to really just experience so much opportunity, and was recruited to work at Binson's Medical Supply as a greeter. And then this was being from unemployed to being recruited again by Chick-fil-A to work on their line, and then eventually landed with me at EveryBody. And he's been at a lot of different events with me speaking, and his honesty about his experience and about what it's like living with autism may have never been known if I didn't know him as a child and he didn't make that one phone call. And how much he's given us, and just seeing that if you just give someone a chance, you might see from the outside that it's just an individual that's 30 something years old, has never been employed, and that, is not well kempt or whatever. And then just to give a little bit of opportunity can change somebody's whole life.
It must be so beautiful for you to watch through the years. It's almost like being a proud mom, right? To see all your kids like go on to do incredible things. And really, Dutton Farm has not only just become a farm, but it really is a community. It really is a family where people come and build relationships and friendships and support one another. And everybody who comes through here is changing the world, truly.
Yeah, I think the big word that I hold on to is dignity. I think that's something that is often not afforded to people with disabilities. There's an immediate pity that's not warranted or needed. And then, it moves to charity, and then it moves to equality and kind of a brotherhood, sisterhood. And we're peers here, and we give and take, and we learn from each other. And I think that's the beauty here, that it's there's nobody here is superior. We're all equal to each other.
You said earlier that Dutton Farm changed your life, and I'm sure that means a lot of different things. But for people that are listening, how has your work with Dutton Farm, and how has the farm itself and everybody who's come through here, how have they impacted your life?
I mean, this is my whole life. I eat, breathe, sleep this place. But it's hard to put that in just a couple of sentences, but there is just something so beautiful about a friendship with somebody that has either some kind of developmental disability or mental health challenge. And I hate to put any kind of blanket statements on anything, but if you don't know somebody who has a developmental disability or a mental health, a serious mental health challenge, it will be the best decision you ever make. It will change your life in all of the best ways. It gives you perspective. It gives you joy. It gives you appreciation. It shows you gratitude. But most importantly, I think it's unconditional love. I've never experienced unconditional love like I do from the participants here at Dutton Farm. You could show up the biggest hot mess in tears, and I have. And they are so comfortable in the awkward. It's never awkward with somebody that's here at Dutton Farm. And I think so often we're so aware of how we're perceived and what people think about us, and making sure we have ourselves together and our makeup on and you know, the right clothes on and this, that, or the other thing. But with our participants, I never feel that way. I never feel judged. I never feel like I'm not good enough. I never feel like I don't have the words to say. I never feel unloved. And that's such a special thing in the world we live in today, is to have a place that you always experience absolute unconditional love. So I think that's it. The unconditional
you feel
love.
it here too. I want to encourage everybody who's listening to come to Dutton Farm. It's such a powerful, it's just such a powerful place to be. Jenny, this podcast is all about dreaming, like big dreams. I want to know, in your dream of dream worlds, where does Dutton Farm go from here, 5 or 10 years down the line? What do you hope that Dutton Farm can be in this community, but also to the world?
So twofold. For the company, I want the company to grow to a place where we're providing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employment hours a year. So for every $20 spent, 1 hour of employment is created for somebody who's chronically unemployed because they have a developmental disability. So I'd like to see that grow either through our online sales channel or through a franchise model. But that's what I see for everybody, is to create employment opportunities. And for Dutton, my big dream is to see the world look more like Dutton Farm. I don't want Dutton Farm to be compromised or changed or impacted by the ugliness of the world. I want to protect the sacred place that this is, but also to see it grow exponentially to create this same space for people all over the country, whether they want to access us virtually or whether there's little satellites all over where the mission and the feeling and the culture is preserved. And it looks different, right? It might be farming here. It might be something else in an urban setting, but still the culture is protected. And I'd like to see little satellites of that and little beacons of hope for people with developmental disabilities all over the country.
So people that are listening, who are all over the country or even all over the world, who are listening, what can they do to emulate your work in their own community? You mentioned something a little bit ago that was really powerful to me, is that you just hiring people and giving people an opportunity, no matter who they are, no matter where what their background is, whether or not they have a developmental difference or whatever, that we have opportunities in our businesses, in our daily lives, to give people opportunities. But what would you say to people around the world? How can they emulate what you're doing?
The most important thing you can do to advocate for this marginalized group of people that have developmental disabilities is to befriend one. Seriously, truly, honestly, befriend one. Not in a charitable way, not in a service way. Don't go volunteer somewhere and think you've checked that box, but invite them into your world, in your space, in your life, and truly, truly become their friend. And it will be one of the best decisions you've ever made in your life. I 100% guarantee you. I guarantee you, change your life. And be intentional about it. Find someone that you can befriend and just talk about it. I think a lot of times there's so much stigma around the pity for people with developmental disabilities, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. There's more joy in my friends with developmental disabilities than those without, bar none. and talk about it in your workplace, in your churches, in your community groups. Why is there no one with a developmental disability that works here or that attends this church or is in a leadership position in our community? Ask those questions and make it something that you talk about, because our world needs it. And it's the right thing to do. So I think those are the two most important things. I mean, of course, volunteering, giving your time, your talent, your treasure to organizations that are doing the hard work like we are. But personally, the more we can change the narrative, the easier it's going to make organizations work as we continue to move ahead with our mission.
And it's just in the little things too, like you shared, inviting someone to coffee or inviting them over to your house for dinner. It doesn't have to be these big things.
Nope.
I think a lot of times we end up talking ourselves out of doing something good because we think so
overcomplicate
big.
it.
Yeah, we overcomplicate it. And it's like, just be kind to other people. And yeah, I think the world can be so isolating for everyone. Everyone feels that. I know during COVID, so many people felt so isolated.
Yeah.
And I'm sure even everybody connected to Dutton Farm felt that. And so just building community with other people and reaching out to others and asking them to coffee or just calling them and hearing somebody's voice for 5 minutes
makes a huge difference. And I would challenge you to just go through your texts, the last 20 texts that you sent or the last 20 phone calls, and really analyze how much are all of these people just like me. Because when you seek to know and be refined by people that are different than you and to learn, your life becomes so much richer.
What can people do to support your work? I know we talked about what they can do in their own communities, but what can they do to support Dutton Farm? What can they do to support everybody? Obviously, they can buy some bath bombs.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves to spend money, right? Who doesn't love a relaxing spa day at home? If you go on our website and buy our products, you will get a product with a name on it of who made that product. So you know that the money you spent was going to employ a specific person and it's their signature. So it's something really special about what we do. But go online, buy our products. That is, a really, really practical thing that you can do just anyways. I mean, just being mindful of where you spend your money and spending it with businesses that are ethical and have a social mission. But also, I mean, if you live close, volunteering is always something that is helpful for us. We have to be really, really careful about our volunteers now because of COVID. But, there's several other ways that you can get involved with us. You can attend our events, you can donate to us, and then, of course, volunteer when it's appropriate to do so.
Yeah. So Jenny, before I let you go, I'm so grateful for all the work that you do, and I'm grateful for this time together and for you sharing your story on the podcast. I always end this podcast with one question, so I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
So many. I have 3 daughters. Well, I have 5 kids, but my 3 daughters, they're getting older and I'm imparting wisdom to them all the time. But the first phrase that came to me was, you can. Like, end of story. You can. And so if there is a dream and there is a passion or there is something that's tugged at your heartstrings, it's for a reason. And, don't listen to the doubters or people saying that you can't do it or you're not good enough or you don't have the resources. Like, you can, end of story, and move forward with what your heart and your passion is driving you to do.
It's beautiful. Jenny, thank you for all the great work that you do with Dutton Farm and for everybody. I will be sure to post all the links to everything that you guys are doing so people can easily find it. And we're going to promote all of your products and all that. But thank you for all the great work you do. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number 1 Girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number 1 girlrevolution.com.